From a really early age, I remember having a desire to do martial arts. It was something that was really important to me. And falling into judo was something that sort of just happened to me. I had a friend at school in kindergarten. He was going to judo class and I just sort of came along to judo class. And from day one, I fell in love with it. For me, it was an outlet. It was like I could fight as hard as I wanted and get everything out of my system.
Exclusive collaboration.
For me, the Olympics was always a goal from judo. I remember I was probably only 8 years old when my coach was talking to me about the 2016 Olympics. And at the time, it just seemed completely and utterly crazy for an 8-year-old to be thinking all the way to 2016. But as it crept closer, that dream started to become a little bit more of a reality. When I was 16, to supplement my training, to make myself a stronger and better judo player, I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And for me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was always a way to make my ground game better, to make my newaza better in judo. I'd never had any intent of competing in Jiu-Jitsu, but for some reason, it just came naturally to me. I found Jiu-Jitsu a lot easier naturally than I did judo. I remember the first competition that I did was in the children's division, and I just walked through the division. Me and my coach needed to come up with a solution sort of to find a way that I could get better competition, and the Pan Pacific titles were coming up. The Pan Pacific titles are the biggest tournament that is run in the whole of Oceania, and there was only an adult division. So I lied about my age and entered the competition anyway, and I won all 6 fights by submission with the same submission and won gold. Since then, I've had a love for competing in both judo and jiu-jitsu, but I sort of got to a crossroads in about 2013, where I realized that if I wanted to be good at either judo or jiu-jitsu, I was going to have to focus on just the one of them. So even though I've been doing judo for a lot longer than I've been doing jiu-jitsu, and judo will always be what shaped me as an athlete and shaped me as a grappler, when I compete, I feel so much more comfortable doing jiu-jitsu. So it sort of was a no-brainer. I had to drop judo and pursue jiu-jitsu and see where that takes me. My name is Kalalok Sodi. Roger, is there one in the tank where you need one from back here? A large part of optimising my training is having a good work-life balance. I work as an aviation firefighter at Sydney Airport, and this career and this job really complements my training. I first got interested in firefighting when I was 17 years old. My uncle actually had exactly the same job that I had. He was even on the same crew as me. And one day he asked me to come in for a station visit. He took me inside and he sort of just showed me the station. He showed me these giant trucks and took me for a drive in them around the station. And at that point I started to realise how cool a job it was being a firefighter. Being a firefighter requires a great deal of physicality. As part of our job, it's compulsory that we train a minimum of half an hour a day in the gym. And I find that being a fighter and training outside of work has really helped me to develop the kind of physicality that you need to be a good firefighter. And when I do my firefighting training, when I'm doing my conditioning at work, I find that this training also overlaps and makes me a better fighter. At work, I've got an amazing opportunity and I work with a great crew. They're really supportive of my training, and we train together at work on our physicality, and also work on our firemanship. It's great to have such a passionate team who are so conscientious of health, strength, and firefighting. In Jiu-Jitsu, there's often this concept that once you're with one gym, you stick with that gym for life. And whilst I can sort of see the merit in what it means to be part of a family, I really don't agree with that. Because I think that to become the best athlete that you can be, you need to fight as many people as possible and then train with as many different bodies as possible. I know for a fact that my coach got me to some point in my career, and I never forget that because it's a part of what shaped me today. But one of the best things about the relationship that I do have with my coach is that he's okay with me training wherever I want to train. And that's what shaped my jiu-jitsu more than anything else. If I can, I try and train at 5 different gyms in a week, because training at all of these different gyms gives me an opportunity to train with the best guys at every single gym and the best guys in Sydney. So before I did jiu-jitsu, I was always doing judo. And in the judo ground game, pressure is really important. It's not like jiu-jitsu where you just have to tap somebody out. You can also win by pinning someone to the ground for 25 seconds. And to do that, you need to maintain a lot of pressure. Because personally, I believe that the jiu-jitsu ground game is far superior to the judo ground game. Yet, I've always had that pressure base in mind. So my game has now evolved to the point where I'm still playing this judo kind of newaza or ground fighting, but I play a pressure game. But what I'm trying to do is create the illusion of strength. In judo, we often talk about minimum effort, maximum efficiency, and I think that's sort of what I apply to jiu-jitsu. If I can, I want to make myself feel twice as strong as I am and twice as heavy as I am without using twice as much strength or twice as much weight. And for me, that's what pressure jiu-jitsu is.
Let's never do that again.
I love those hustle nights when you can't seem to sleep. Where seven-day parties found intentionally. Watching those final discs spin, letting music turn to thin air.
In 2011, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And for me, my dad was somebody who was completely and utterly inspirational. He was somebody who I aspired to be like because his personality and who he was exactly what I wanted to be. And I think people have different ways of dealing with grief and dealing with difficult situations. But the best way that I could deal with the situation was to train as hard as I could. The harder I trained, the better I felt. In 2012, Dad finally passed away, and for me, I think that was the moment where it completely switched. For me to be able to cope with what had happened, the only way that I could do it was to train harder and harder. And I think now that's where a lot of my drive comes from, because grappling and jiu-jitsu and judo is where I find solace. If I'm anxious, I wrestle. If I'm feeling sad, I wrestle. If I'm angry, I wrestle. And at the end of that, I come back to this neutral level. So for me, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, and wrestling is my rock. Judo basically shaped my childhood, and jiu-jitsu has shaped my adulthood. It's what I base everything in my life upon. It's what I don't know where I would be without it, because it's helped me get through my whole life in every aspect of my life.